My name is Caleb Evans, and this story starts under the Friday night lights of Northwood, Indiana, the kind of place where high school football is less a sport and more a religion. I was 18, a senior, and my whole world revolved around the 50-yard line, but not in the way you might think. I wasn't the star player, I wasn't even on the team. I was the team manager, the guy with the clipboard and the water bottles, the one who saw everything from the sidelines. My best friend Liam Miller was the one who lived in the spotlight. He was our quarterback, a once-in-a-generation talent for a town like ours. He had a cannon for an arm and feet so fast they seemed to float over the turf. From the time we were kids, playing catch in my backyard until my mom called us in for dinner, I knew he was different. He had this fire in him, a drive to be the best, and everyone saw it. By the time we were juniors, letters from Division I colleges were piling up on his kitchen table. His dream was to get a full scholarship and leave Northwood in the rearview mirror, and I was his biggest fan, cheering him on every step of the way. Our friendship was the one constant in my life. We navigated everything together, from broken curfews to broken hearts. He was the sun, and I was perfectly happy just being in his orbit, sharing in the warmth. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was good. I had my best friend, I had my role with the team, and I had my own quiet plans to go to state school, maybe study business or something practical. Life in Northwood was predictable, comfortable, and I thought I had it all figured out, but there was a shadow on the sidelines, a pocket of cold in the warmth of our senior year. His name was Brandon Hess. Brandon was our backup quarterback. He was good, maybe even great by any other standard, but he had the misfortune of being in the same grade as a legend. He had the same dream as Liam, but he was always destined to watch it happen for someone else. You could see the jealousy eating him alive. When Liam threw a perfect 60-yard touchdown pass, the whole stadium would erupt, but I'd look over at the bench and see Brandon, his helmet in his hands, staring at the ground with a look of pure acid on his face. He never said much, just these little passive-aggressive comments in the locker room, like, must be nice to have it so easy, or guess some guys are just born lucky. Liam would just brush it off, too focused on the game to let it bother him, but I saw it. I saw the bitterness festering in Brandon. He came from one of those families that everyone in town knew. His father was a deacon at the biggest church and had a lot of sway on the school board. They presented this perfect, pious image to the world. Brandon was supposed to be the golden boy, the model son, but behind the polite smiles and church bake sales, there was something dark and twisted brewing inside him. The first crack in my world appeared on a Tuesday morning in October. It didn't come with a loud bang, but with a quiet, insidious whisper that started in the hallways and spread like a virus. The rumor was that Liam was using performance-enhancing drugs. It started with an anonymous email sent to our coach, the principal, and the head of the athletic conference. It was cowardly, but it was effective. Suddenly, the golden boy was tainted. The whispers followed him everywhere. Was that how he was so good? Was it all a lie? My world, which had felt so solid and certain, suddenly felt like it was built on sand. The problem wasn't just a rumor. It was a direct assault on my best friend's entire future, and our nemesis wasn't a rival team on the field, but a snake hiding in our own locker room. The first thing that happened was Coach Thompson called Liam into his office. I waited outside, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. When Liam came out, his face was pale, his jaw set like stone. He told me the school was launching a formal investigation. Had to submit to a drug test immediately. Of course, he wasn't worried about the test itself. We both knew he was clean. He was meticulously careful about what he put in his body, down to the last vitamin. The real damage was already done. The accusation itself was the poison. Recruiters from the big colleges started calling, not to offer scholarships, but to ask questions. Their voices were polite, but the underlying message was clear. A scandal could make him toxic. I tried to fight back. I defended him in the cafeteria, in the hallways, to anyone who would listen. I'd say, you guys know Liam, he wouldn't do that, but it was like trying to cup water in my hands. The rumor was just too juicy. People in our small town loved building heroes up, but they loved tearing them down even more. It gave them something to talk about over coffee at the diner. The drug test came back negative, just as we knew it would, but it didn't matter. The whispers just changed their tune. Oh, he must have cycled off just in time, they'd say. His dad probably paid someone off to switch the sample. It was insane. The more we tried to fight it, the bigger it got. The pressure was immense, and for the first time I saw it get to Liam. On the field, he started hesitating. His passes, once so crisp and confident, started to wobble. He'd overthrow receivers or hold onto the ball for too long, getting sacked. And as Liam faltered, Brandon thrived. Coach started putting him in for a few series here and there to give Liam a chance to clear his head. And Brandon played like a man possessed. He wasn't as gifted as Liam, but he was hungry, and he played with a reckless energy that the crowd responded to. He became the underdog story. Our team started to fracture. Some guys sided with Liam, but others, smelling a shift in the power dynamic, started cozying up to Brandon. The locker room, once our sanctuary, became a minefield of cold shoulders and suspicious glances. The stakes just kept getting higher. We lost a game we should have won. then another. The dream of a state championship, which had felt like a certainty just weeks before, was slipping through our fingers. The town, which had worshipped Liam, was starting to get restless. The cheers for him became polite, then hesitant, and then they were replaced by loud, enthusiastic roars for Brandon. It was torture watching it happen, seeing my best friend being erased and replaced right in front of his eyes. I felt so helpless. I just knew Brandon was behind it, but I had no proof. It was just a gut feeling, a certainty born from watching his smug satisfaction grow with every one of Liam's failures. The breaking point, the moment I felt the floor completely drop out from under me, came on a cold November evening. Liam called me and told me to come over. When I got to his house, the atmosphere was heavy. His parents looked exhausted. Liam was sitting on his bed, staring at an acceptance letter. It was from a top Division I school on the West Coast, the one he dreamed of, but it wasn't the triumphant moment we had always imagined. He explained that the offer was conditional. They wanted him to graduate high school early at the end of the fall semester and enroll in January. The coach had been blunt. He wanted to get Liam out of the toxic environment of Northwood and into their program as quickly as possible, away from the rumors and the drama. It was a lifeline for him, a way out of the nightmare our senior year had become. For me, it was a punch to the gut. My best friend was leaving. Our plans to rule the school for one last semester, to go to prom, to walk across the graduation stage together, all of it was gone. He was escaping, and I was being left behind to face the wreckage. We talked for hours that night about everything. He was torn up about leaving, but he knew he had to take the offer. It was his future. I tried to be happy for him, I really did. I told him it was the right move, that he had to do it, but inside I was breaking. The day he left was one of the bleakest of my life. I helped him pack his car, the silence between us filled with all the things we couldn't say. We hugged, a quick, hard hug, and then he drove away. I stood in his empty driveway until his taillights disappeared, feeling a profound sense of loneliness and rage. I was alone in a school where the villain had won. Brandon was now the starting quarterback, the celebrated hero who had saved the season. He was living Liam's life, and I, the loyal friend, the team manager, was just a ghost haunting the sidelines. All was lost. My friend was gone, our senior year was ruined, and the person responsible was being paraded around like a king. The injustice of it all settled deep in my bones, a cold, hard knot of hatred that I knew I would never be able to untie. The weeks after Liam left were a blur of gray misery. I'd walk through the halls of Northwood High, and it felt like a foreign country. The same people who used to clap Liam on the back were now high-fiving Brandon. He'd walk by me, a smug little smirk playing on his lips, the undisputed king of the castle. The anger inside me didn't fade, it sharpened. It became a singular focus, a burning obsession. I had to know for sure, I had to have proof. My chance came on a freezing afternoon in late February. As team manager, one of my last duties was to clean out the lockers of the players who had graduated early. It was a miserable job, but it meant I was in the locker room alone after school. As I was bagging up Liam's old cleats and workout clothes, feeling a fresh wave of sadness, I heard voices coming from the showers. It was Brandon and a couple of his buddies, linemen who followed him around like pilot fish on a shark. They thought they were alone, and Brandon, high on his own success, was bragging. He was laughing, a loud, ugly sound that echoed off the tiles. He was telling them the whole story. He talked about using the library computer to create a burner email account so it couldn't be traced back to him. He detailed how he'd researched the names of common performance-enhancing drugs to make the anonymous tip sound legitimate. He even mimicked the worried voice of Coach Thompson. And then he said the words that made my blood run cold. "Miller was always getting in my way," Brandon said, his voice dripping with venom. "I just had to clear the path. He never deserved it anyway." Listening to him, all my suspicion and hatred coalesced into a cold, hard certainty. He wasn't just a jealous kid, he was cruel and calculating. He had systematically destroyed my best friend's reputation and happiness for his own gain. In that moment, standing there with Liam's old jersey in my hands, something inside me snapped. The grief I felt turned into something else, something harder and more dangerous. It was pure, undiluted rage. A plan began to form in my mind, not a loud, explosive plan, but a quiet, methodical one, a revenge that would use Brandon's own world against him. I knew all about his family, about their obsession with maintaining a perfect Christian image. I knew that Brandon, despite playing the part of the dutiful son, was a massive hypocrite. He drank at parties, he fooled around with girls, he was everything his parents preached against. His piety was a costume, and I was going to rip it off him. The idea came to me when I saw him talking to his father after a church service, putting on that respectful, humble act. The hypocrisy was so thick you could choke on it. I remembered the condoms some of the guys on the team used to joke about, calling them sin shields. That's when the final piece clicked into place. I wasn't just going to get him in trouble. I was going to use the very symbols of the sins his family feared most to bring him down. The next Saturday, I told my parents I was going to a movie in Indianapolis, about an hour away. Instead, I drove to a Planned Parenthood clinic on the far side of the city. I'd never been to a place like that before, and my hands were sweating on the steering wheel as I pulled into the parking lot. I walked in, my heart hammering, and told the woman at the front desk I was doing a health project for school. I asked for some pamphlets on birth control and safe sex, and if they had any free condoms I could take as examples. She was incredibly nice and didn't ask any questions. She gave me a plain white paper bag filled with what I needed, a handful of condoms in different colored wrappers, and a stack of brochures with clinical diagrams and blunt descriptions of various birth control methods. It was perfect. There was no way to trace it back to the clinic, no logos, no addresses. It was just a bag full of everything the Hess family stood against. The execution had to be flawless. My chance came the following Friday before the final basketball game of the season. The locker room was chaos, guys shouting, music blasting, the air thick with the smell of sweat and deodorant. Brandon's backpack was sitting on the bench by his locker. He was a creature of habit. He always left it there while he got changed. My moment came when a fight over the music selection broke out on the other side of the room, drawing everyone's attention. With my body shielding me from view, my hands trembling slightly, I walked past his bench. In one smooth motion, I unzipped the front pocket of his backpack and slid the white paper bag inside, pushing it down beneath his wallet and keys. I zipped it back up and walked away, my heart feeling like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. The deed was done. Now all I had to do was wait. The next few days were agonizing. I watched Brandon looking for any sign, but there was nothing. He was his usual arrogant self. I started to worry. Maybe his parents weren't as strict as I thought. Maybe he found the bag and just threw it away. Maybe my grand plan was a total failure. Then on Wednesday, Brandon wasn't at school. He was gone on Thursday, too. Rumors started to fly. Was he sick? Was he in trouble? By Friday, the story was all over the school, pieced together from whispers and third-hand accounts. Brandon's mom had been looking in his backpack for a permission slip for the end-of-season athletic banquet, and she had found the little white paper bag. The fallout was apparently biblical. The screaming was said to have been heard by the neighbors. His parents didn't just ground him, they dismantled his life. They pulled him from the banquet. They forbade him from attending prom. He was not allowed to go on the senior trip. For the rest of the school year, his mom drove him to school every single day, dropping him off at the front door and waiting in the exact same spot to pick him up the second the bell rang. He was a prisoner. The best part, the most poetic consequence, was what happened to his college plans. He had been accepted to a big, private Christian university in Tennessee, a place his parents had been bragging about for months. They pulled his application. They decided he wasn't spiritually mature enough to be so far from home. Instead, he was being forced to enroll at the local Northwood Community College and live at home under their watchful eyes. The king had been dethroned, not in a blaze of glory, but in a quiet, humiliating spectacle of his own hypocrisy. The whispers that had once destroyed my best friend were now attached to Brandon, whispers about what kind of trouble he was really in. His reign was over, and I had a front row seat. Years passed, life moved on. I went to Indiana University, got my business degree, and tried my best to put Northwood behind me. I stayed close with Liam. He thrived in college. Away from the poison of our hometown, he became the star everyone knew he could be. He was happy, successful, and had completely left the drama of senior year in the past. We'd talk on the phone, and the bitterness I once felt was gone, replaced by the simple comfort of an old friendship. I rarely went back to Northwood, but one summer I had to go home to help my parents with some things around the house. It was a hot, sticky July afternoon, and I ran out to the Dollar General to grab some snacks and drinks. The store was mostly empty, the air humming with the buzz of the fluorescent lights. I walked down the aisles, grabbing a bag of chips and a soda, and went up to the front to pay, and that's when I saw him. Behind the counter, wearing a faded red polo shirt with the store's logo on it, was Brandon Hess. He looked defeated. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by a slump in his shoulders. His face was pale, and he had the tired, empty eyes of someone who had given up. He was ringing up an elderly woman's purchases, his movements slow and mechanical. When it was my turn, I put my things on the counter. He looked up, and for a second our eyes met. There was a flicker of recognition in his, followed by a wave of shame that was so palpable I could almost feel it. He quickly looked down, his face flushing red. He didn't say my name, I didn't say his. There was no need for a big confrontation, no dramatic speech. The silence in that moment said everything. I saw my revenge, not as a single act of planting a bag in his backpack, but as this long, slow decay of a life he thought he was entitled to. He had tried to steal Liam's future, and in the end, he had only managed to sabotage his own. He was trapped here, in the town he had once ruled, ringing up cheap merchandise under the harsh lights of a discount store. I paid for my things, gave him a quiet thank you, and walked out into the sunlight. As the automatic doors slid shut behind me, I didn't feel a thrill of victory or a surge of vengeful pride. I just felt closure. The anger that had lived in my bones for so long was finally gone. My revenge hadn't just brought him down, it had set me free. He was the one left haunted by the ghosts of our senior year, while I was finally able to walk away and not look back.